Hi everyone, my name is Patrick Akil, and for today's episode, we cover the right way to facilitate as a manager. And today's guest is really willing to walk through fire for his people. He empowers them and enables them to do whatever they need to get the job done. He's an IT manager, security and continuity at the social insurance bank, Nick van Meeteren. I'll put all his links to his socials in the description below. Check him out. And with that being said, enjoy the episode.
Beyond coding.
That's interesting because, you and I met on a training in Rome.
Correct.
And one of the things that really stuck with me is that you're a real people person. I don't know if you would describe yourself that way, but that's kind of the impression you gave on me.
Okay.
And I had the feeling you would go through fire for your people, the people that you're managing or for your team.
I will.
Why? Where does that come from? Because I love that in the people I'm working with, in my manager, the people that are responsible or accountable for me and the team. But not everyone has that.
Well, one, I'm a people person because it's just me.
I love that.
It's just who I am. I'm maybe not the most sociable person, but I'm definitely not the most introverted person. I'm somewhere in the middle, I would say.
Yeah.
And coming from let's say the work floor area before I moved into management positions, it was always very clear to me that if a manager doesn't stand for his or her people in their in his or her teams, that these people will not feel comfortable and therefore will never create the best that they can, or have this vision, take a chance, take a risk, make a mistake. What's wrong with a mistake?
Yeah.
It's just a learning process, and therefore I always felt that, and I had managers that did that as well, and I had the opposite. So that was a very nice comparison. The fact that I kind of needed to shield them so that they could be the best that they could be. And that also comes with a certain internal motivation. And therefore, I will never publicly, attack any of my people or let them be attacked.
Yeah.
And I've had several instances where that did happen, and I will always stand for my people, even if they make mistakes. We're human. If you don't want mistakes, take robots.
I love that.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And if you're going to try something new, chances are you're going to make mistakes. You learn from those mistakes, and then you move on to something new. And you take a different approach. If you can't facilitate that space of making mistakes and assuming that everybody's going to be perfect all the time, don't expect anything new. Don't expect a new perspective, a new invention, new innovation, because it's not going to come.
Yeah, like I'm fully there with you, but that realization for me personally took time. It took time to be in that position, be in the workforce, be managed in such a way where it either was on a micro level, and then I'm not happy. The person that's probably micromanaging me is not happy, and I'm like, there's no innovation. I can't do anything new. I can't make any mistakes because everything is like finger pointed and right on there. But on the opposite side, where I had the freedom and the option to make mistakes, to learn from that, and the environment was safe enough to do so, and for me to grow there, those were the best environments. That's where I grew the most.
Absolutely.
Where I had the most responsibility and I could take that accountability, right? Yet, not a lot of people give that freedom to a lot of people to make mistakes. Like there should be a balance maybe, but I think it's very hard to do.
You also have to make sure that you have people that feel comfortable with that space, with that responsibility. That's something I learned when I switched to my current employer. Being a semi-government organization, there was a lot of people management going around.
Yeah.
And the fact that I was, let's say, perhaps the new generation of, some people really did not feel comfortable. You're the manager. Tell me what to do.
Okay.
So even in this very complex world, there are people that love that freedom and love that that space to innovate and to create and to make something new. And there are the people that really do not feel comfortable with it.
Right.
That it actually makes them incredibly insecure. So I actually had to find a new balance in that where certain people really want me to tell them what to do.
Right.
And certain people, you can tell that they love it, or if you give them a little push, a little maneuver, a little space every time, a little more,
Yeah.
that they will grow into it.
Interesting.
But you have to be careful, because some people will feel that responsibility as almost, like a huge weight, and will not want to come back to you as manager and say, I can't do this,
Yeah.
or I need help. You have to be you have to keep the balance where certain people do need a certain facilitation, or do need somebody to how would you say that in English?
I mean, holding their hand is not a nice way of saying it.
No, it's not holding. It's not holding a hand. It's facilitating. You can't. It's basically a baby starts learning how to walk.
Yeah.
Well, great. He's going to fall. He's going to grab. He or she's going to grab the coffee table, and then finally they're going to learn to walk.
Yeah.
Once they go out on the street, you can't just let them go.
Exactly.
You're going to have to teach them, how do you cross the road? Look to the left, look to the right. Is there any other traffic coming? No, then you can cross the road. So it's not it's not holding somebody's hand.
Yeah.
It's creating a safe environment where they can learn things and also figure out how they click and how they tick.
Yeah.
And that's so I always call it facilitating. I don't call it holding somebody's hand, because that would make me feel that person is incompetent, which they are not.
Exactly. Yeah, I like that a lot. But you had to, you as a manager first need to have that insight, right? That not everyone is the same. Not everyone likes that responsibility and accountability. Some people thrive in it.
Mm-hmm.
And for some people, it's like a shackle, or it holds them down, or they get anxiety from it.
Correct.
And they crash, right?
Correct.
That's not their environment. That's not safe for them. So you have to be able to first figure out what people want, right? Where they are and where they can grow, and then adapt accordingly. Because I think you, as a facilitator, you should facilitate properly for the people that you're facilitating for or managing
Correct.
for, right? How do you get that insight? Like, is it by having a conversation? Does it come natural to you? Let me start with that.
It comes natural to me, and I'm a human, so yes, I do make mistakes.
Yeah.
So I've had situations where people thought that they were doing a good job, and then the pressure was on.
Yeah.
In this case, it was a certain project. The pressure was on, and at a certain point, they felt they couldn't come back. This person didn't feel comfortable coming back to me and saying, Nick, this is not working for me.
Okay.
And eventually, he cracked. So I got a telephone call from the project manager at the time.
Yeah.
And he said, this person of yours is a complete failure, this, that, and et cetera, et cetera. We have these deadlines, et cetera, and none of them came true.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I haven't heard anything about this. Let me talk to him. I'll come back to you. So I looked up this person. This was pre-COVID, so we were still all in the office.
Yeah.
And we went to the company cafeteria, and the moment I started the conversation, I could see him tearing up. I said, okay, let's go into a meeting room, because you don't want to do this in a public space.
Yeah.
So we went to a meeting room, and this person completely cracked.
Okay.
Crying, red eyes, completely in tears, and felt like a complete failure.
Okay.
And I was so extremely pissed off. So I said to this person, I said, listen, in this state, you're not going to do anything.
Yeah.
So you're taking the day off. You're going to go home.
Yeah.
It was a Friday. You're going to have a long weekend, do stuff that you like, relax, enjoy your weekend, and we'll talk on Monday when you calm down. And he said, no, I can't do that. I have to work. I said, no, you're not going to work. You're not going to produce anything today.
Exactly.
So just go home and relax. And I simply called that project manager, and I said to him, listen, if you do this to one of my people again, I'm going to take my knowledge out of your project, and then you can stuff it.
Yeah.
This is not how we treat people. If something goes wrong, then I want to know about it ahead of time. But you have kept putting on the pressure up to the point that this person has cracked, and that is totally unacceptable.
Yeah.
Since then, that project manager was extremely nice to me because he knew he had a problem if I would take the resources out of his project. And eventually, I put a senior person next to the guy that I had sent home for the weekend, and eventually it worked out. And he grew and he found his trust. He knew that he could trust me and that I trusted him and that he could come to me if the situation wasn't going the way that he thought it should be going, or if he had questions, and then we could just talk about it and just evaluate what was going on and what should be changed or what we could do differently or whatever. But in that sense, I will never crack down on any of my I don't like to say my people, but the people that work in my teams, because that's not productive. This person made a mistake. He had this huge sense of responsibility, which is something to praise.
Yeah.
But he felt that he was the only one that needed to deal with this responsibility, and that's not the case.
Yeah.
He should have just come over to me and said, this is too much. I can't do this alone. And then we're going to see what we can do about this. But he didn't feel that space to come back to me. Now he does.
Exactly.
So I completely mismanaged that. I never saw that he was under pressure. If I had conversations with him, everything was going good. Everything was going great, which it wasn't at the end of the day. So yes, I'd make mistakes myself. Of course. Can I blame myself that I hadn't seen that earlier? No, because that person also has a responsibility to come to me and say, Nick, this is not working for me. He didn't. And perhaps I should have been more prudent with asking questions, which I didn't. Eventually, no harm, no foul. He learned a lesson, I learned a lesson, and we're doing great.
Yeah, you move onward. I think those that have a high sense of responsibility and accountability also have a tendency to put a lot of weight on their own shoulders.
Absolutely.
Right? Even though it should never be, I don't think it should ever be on an individual level. Like it can be for tasks or things or sure. But in the end of the day, who is responsible is the team and the whole operation, the whole organization that is behind that, the team that you're doing it with and that you're doing it for as well, that is responsible at the end. And I love that you highlight that. You're not finger pointing, right? The worst thing you can do in that moment is finger point at others and also at yourself. You're like, okay, I could have done things differently, but also fault is usually somewhere in the middle, right? If you said it's 100% my fault, then you're going to spiral. You're going to have that pressure. You're going to be that individual that says, this is all my responsibility. But still, it's somewhere in the middle. Somewhere is a miscommunication. And when there is a miscommunication, it's usually from both sides.
Correct.
I think that's really cool that you understood that it is also not solely your fault.
No. So that's why I don't like to call it finger pointing. I like to call it evaluating and drawing lessons from that for a next time.
Yeah.
And that's, like I said, I'm human. I learn from a day-to-day basis new things, meeting up with new people, and no two people are identical. So what works with person A may not work with person B.
Exactly.
So that's one of the things that makes my job so interesting.
Yeah, I love hearing that. When we zoom into what went wrong with regards to project management and the pressure that was put on there, I think that's something usually that goes wrong. But I don't know either where it comes from or mostly where it comes from. I see how it goes, and it's not good for the people. But there's a lot of deadlines being thrown out. Some are very unreasonable. I don't know where they come from. I don't know how they originate, but sometimes somehow they're there. Maybe for a project manager, from their responsibility or perspective, they want to make sure people move. So they put deadlines and it's not really discussed on what's feasible, or even when things are feasible, it's not evaluated or reevaluated often enough to move. Because once a deadline is set, somehow it's set in stone and it never actually moves until it's not met. And then somehow we manage to move it.
And that's pretty bad project management.
Exactly.
In the projects that I'm either in the project board or in the steering committees, I will always discuss deadlines, content, assignments with the resources that I actually put in the team. Yeah. I can make it up as I go along, but I'd rather have a fundamentally supported deadline than something that's basically a sandcastle.
Yeah.
So if something is not feasible, then I'll be the first one to, because I mean, like I said, I'm their representative in a project board or a steering committee.
Yeah.
So if I don't talk to them actually and take their information to a steering committee or a project board, I'm not doing my job, and I'm not facilitating.
Yeah.
I'm not actually doing the work. They're doing the work. And I need to make sure that they are facilitated with everything they need to be able to do the work, which means time, space, money, the requirements, architectural drawings, information security and privacy requirements, et cetera, et cetera. If they don't have all of that, they can't do their work.
Exactly. Yeah. But do you think it's realistic to then put a lot of deadlines on them with regards to the future? Because I like the idea of short deadlines, right? 2 weekly deadlines. That's where all Agile comes in, where Scrum comes in, right? Short deadlines that you can see and evaluate in a shorter time span, right? Because long deadlines don't make sense if your world around you changes that much and you don't reevaluate them often enough.
Depending on where it comes from, then I totally agree with that. I'm more from an infrastructure standpoint, and infrastructure is usually, we always call it the utilities department. So we make sure that everybody has electricity, water, and gas. So that's relatively fundamental, and those are usually quite big and substantial projects.
Yeah.
So 2-week realizations, or maybe even 3 weeks, is not always feasible. But a network for application A, B, or C doesn't really make a difference depending on what kind of application it is. If it's just your average application with your standard codes, then it's fine. If it's going to be something which generates a lot of traffic, then yes, it's going to have an impact on your network. So if it's something that you can actually demonstrate within a couple of weeks, then that's great. For the infrastructure, it's usually much more fundamental. Upgrades from certain network components or hardware components, that's usually much more fundamental and much bigger in that sense. But even in infrastructure, we use a big room kind of planning, according to Agile, where we actually ask our specialists to help us make the decision. What are we going to do now? What's most important? And we do that based on continuity, and we do that based on information security and privacy.
Yeah.
Those are the two primary targets that we have. And we just had a big room planning, which we call a marketplace. I think it was about a month ago, for the last quarter of the year.
Yeah.
And all the big projects, from databases, hardware infrastructure, information security projects, hardening, you name it, everything within managed services, which is the department that I'm part of. We've planned what we're going to do in quarter 4.
Yeah. Involving the right people at the right time, right at the start, when information is so fundamental, you don't make those decisions for them, I think is so empowering for the people that are in your team, right? To have a seat at the table, have a voice in the reasons why things are created, or the discussions why things are made, right? And really understand why we're doing this in the first place. And then to have a voice in that, I think is very empowering.
That's what Agile and Scrum are based on.
Exactly.
I don't really look at how it's organized. I look at the psychology behind it. I'm a manager. And the whole point is we're taking responsibility, and we have a voice, and we're going to inform you what is and isn't possible.
Yeah.
There's a reason why a product owner is the owner of the product backlog, but the sprint backlog is of the development team. Why? Because they're taking ownership. If somebody basically, for instance, a product owner would just shove that work into a certain sprint, you're basically taking away their empowerment. So from a psychological standpoint,
it's not theirs.
It's no longer theirs. And therefore you can't accept them to give their 100 or 110%. If you feel ownership of something, you're going to make sure, within certain limitations, that you're going to do the job and make sure that what you do, that you do it really, really well. But you have to have that ownership, and that can only be done if you have that voice.
Exactly.
If you don't have that voice, it's basically a robot.
Yeah.
You're shoving work in, and work is being done. and it's going to be average work because that's what you're expecting of that person, because you're taking ownership of their responsibility.
Yeah. Was that realization already there when you started out being responsible for people, or when did that realization sink in? Was it in your current organization, or things already in place for it to allow for that? Or
that was in my previous with my previous employer.
Yeah.
I was one of the first teams back in those days that implemented Agile within my team.
Yeah.
Up to a point where I was no longer needed. That's why I moved into infrastructure. I got a new job because I simply wasn't needed for the other job, because the product owner was doing everything. So I basically phased myself out.
Yeah. Which is a good thing.
In this case, it was a really good thing, because we were one of the most productive teams of the entire department, and that was several hundred people. And we were doing the work of, on average, 12 people with just 4.
That's crazy.
But they felt ownership. They felt responsibility. It was their thing. If it didn't work, they felt terrible.
Yeah.
And they were going to do anything and everything and move heaven and earth to make sure that the customers could use whatever service was provided.
Yeah.
And that was with a bank. And the statement of the bank for IT was, the customer must be able to use our services anywhere and at any time. Wow. That was the statement. And from that perspective, even big choices in project boards and steering committees were made, because that's the question we would ask. Okay, we're going to do an upgrade here, but this would mean a downtime of so much.
Yeah.
But we can actually shorten that downtime, but we have an extra risk here and here and here. Which choice are we going to make? Well, the customer needs to be able to use our services anytime, anywhere. So that means a long downtime is unacceptable. We're going to go for the shorter one.
Okay.
And so that was basically the motto, the vision that the bank had, and we used it. And eventually we could implement it in such a way with Agile that I was basically no longer in function. I had a function that was being paid every month, but I wasn't really doing that much.
Yeah.
So I did some extra projects here and there, and then eventually I switched to infrastructure and started managing 6 teams there.
Yeah, but you were one of the first people, one of the first teams to implement that, and then to see the kind of the fruits of your labor as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the funniest joke I remember from that, or the remark that I got from one of the people in my team was, "There's no need to talk to Nick, because you ask him questions, and the only thing you're going to get back is questions." Why? Because I can give him the answer, but then I'm taking away his responsibility and his vision and his think process.
Yeah.
If I start asking questions instead of giving answers, I'm going to make him think, and eventually he's going to come up with the solution. And he's the specialist, so he's always going to come up with a better solution than I'm going to give.
Yeah.
So I give a certain...
Is it like space?
Yeah, well, space, but it's more a framework. Okay, this is, these are the goals. That's the end of the tunnel. This is where we're heading as the organization. What's your best option based on those requirements and those goals to get there?
Yeah.
And let them come up with the answer. They're going to make, like I said, they're going to come up with the better answer than I'm going to come up. I'm just a manager.
Yeah.
I know nothing.
I love that. Leaning on the collective intelligence of more people, right? It'd be very, I don't know if it's vain or it's I don't know. But if you said like, I have all the answers, right? I'm the mastermind here, that's never going to work. That's never going to fly. That's not how you get people motivated and
not at all
inspired to do the best they can.
Not at all. Usually when I come into a meeting for the first time, especially with a group of specialists, I always start out with, I'm the manager, so I know nothing.
Yeah.
And everybody laughs. There's a relaxed environment, and then we get to work.
I love that. Yeah.
Because I'm not the specialist, and I'm never going to be the specialist. That's not my goal. I love that I can talk to them, and that I can relatively easily understand what they're talking about. So, I'm not the manager that doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
I know enough so that when they come to me, I can help them sort things out, so that if they're basically just drowning in information, I can help them organize and compartmentalize that. But they're the ones that they're going to have to come up with the answer.
Yeah,
not me.
exactly. I want to zoom into, because you have a role and kind of a responsibility to allow people to grow as well. When they come to you with personal goals, or when they come to you and they don't have goals, or when they come to you and they don't really see the reason why they should grow. I think it's still your responsibility to allow them to grow, or to kind of how do you say that? Define a path for them to move forward. But there's already there's people that want to grow, there's people that don't want to grow. And then there's people that want to grow, know what they want to do, and people that want to grow and have no clue where to start. How do you usually figure out where to start with people just on a base level in that way?
I'm somebody who likes to grow myself. So I always kind of have this internal conflict if I bump into people that don't want to do that.
Yeah, like you're allergic.
That they're just very comfortable where they are. They just do their thing. They do it well, and they really do not want to grow. I've bumped into those in the last couple of years, and I thought, okay, what am I going to do with this? Well, that's not up to me. That's up to them.
Okay.
So if I'll challenge them, but if they don't pick up the challenge, then that's their responsibility. When it comes to people that want to grow but don't know where to go, it's just a question of talking. It's a question of having conversations. What do you like in your work? What do you not like in your work? Where do you think, if there are certain aspects in your work that you want to evolve in, where do we see that space? I had that recently with somebody in the Security Operations Center who had been doing this for, a decade or so, and he was the flame was out. That frightened him when I said that to him to his face, because he thought, I'm going to lose my job. No, we're not talking about losing a job or whatever. We're talking about your heart is not going to beat faster with this kind of work. You've been doing this for so long. This is just basically, you could be doing this in your sleep.
Exactly.
So where are you going to go next? And then in this case, it was somebody that definitely had a certain fear. And I said, okay, well, let's talk about that. It took months. I'm talking maybe 5 to 8 months before certain things opened up. And eventually he did an internal internship within the organization. So no contracts were changed. That was kind of his thing.
Yeah.
And he's now a security architect.
Wow. Yeah.
And he was just hired about 2 months ago. So he did that for a period of 6 months. And the architect said, we want you.
Nice.
So he made that switch. And since August 1st, that's now official.
Yeah.
That really makes me feel great. Because,
that's awesome.
And now, even when I talk to him right now, his way of communicating with me is completely different. You can just see the energy surging again. You can see, if I talk to him, I can see basically light bulbs going on and off with all kinds of new ideas that he's thinking of. It's just a completely different person right now.
Wow.
Just because he found his new mojo that he's now, living his life with.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I have another one who's been doing a certain job for over 8 years, and is now doing an internship on product owner. So he's a technical specialist, and he wanted to see if product ownership would be something for him. He's doing it right now just to try it out. But he also wants to see if maybe the Security Operations Center analyst would be something that he would be interested in. So we're probably going to start that internship in January. Let people figure it out.
Yeah.
And give him that space. And if people are no longer happy within the organization, because it's not always the job, it could also be the organization, that's fine. Then, in this market right now, it's not great if people leave you. But if that's better for them, then that's what it should be.
Yeah.
Because if you keep them inside and they're not happy, they're not going to thrive. So the organization is useless for the employee, and the employee is useless for the organization.
Yeah.
Very black and white. But they're not going to thrive. They're not going to be able to do their best. Not doing their best, but not be able to, because they just don't feel it. So for me, an employee or a resource or a certain specialist needs to be in their place. And if they're not in their place, then we need to talk about that.
Yeah. I love that you highlight it's people first, right? Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely.
we're doing this thing in an organization and we have things that we do. But if you're not happy, if you want to do something else, then why would you in your position or me in my position withhold other people from doing that when it makes them more happy, right? It's people first all the way.
All the way, because that's the diamond in the rough. That's the bonus is the person, the individual that comes up with the new ideas, that comes with the innovation. If you basically put them in a box and turn out the lights, that's not going to come out because the energy isn't there. So if the energy isn't there, then why is that person working there anyway?
Yeah,
then
makes sense.
There's no use. You might as well just automate it then.
Yeah, we go back to robots.
But that's it. We kind of in the olden days we would see the person as just doing a job.
Yeah,
but we're not seeing the extra added benefits and qualities and innovation and ideas and artistic side of humans.
Yeah.
And that's basically why we're better in certain things than certain automation.
Exactly.
So if you want to fully cash on the human, you're going to have to make sure that the human is in his element and is in the right place.
Can do human things.
And can do human things. Exactly.
Yeah, I like that a lot. We touched on like responsibility and accountability in the first place. And I love that you gave the example that within a team that you implemented Agile with, they were doing the work of many people more than they actually had. Like they were flying, right? They were incredibly productive.
Correct.
But what can also happen is they take on too much. They take on too much accountability, too much responsibility, and it really eats at them.
Mm-hmm.
How do you prevent that from happening? Prevent people from crashing or even reaching to the point where it's a burnout? Like even though that might be years ahead or months ahead, it's still, I think, the responsibility within the team or within the people involved that make sure people also take a step back, also take a break, also take a holiday when they need to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's also a balance. Well, everything is about balance. So if I see, for instance, as a manager, basically very black and white, somebody's not finishing their vacation days, I'm gonna remind them. Especially during Corona, that was the case because people thought, why should I take vacation time off? I can't go anywhere anyway. Yeah. That's not the point. The point is, and I do recognize it because I had a surplus on vacation days myself. But there is a balance between work and private life. If that balance is out of place, then chances of burnouts are going to be much, much higher. With the responsibility of actually producing work, there also comes the responsibility, what can I do? And where are my limits? The moment that a manager is no longer responsible, eventually they're accountable, but they're no longer responsible because the team is taking that responsibility. That responsibility also includes what can and can we not do.
Yeah.
That's still an open conversation between, let's say, the manager and the team or the individual, but that's part of the responsibility. And the manager will try to, have those conversations and kind of, push them here and there to see if it really is what they're saying, because the first response is, how are you doing? Oh, I'm doing great.
Always.
Yeah. With certain people, that's actually the case. With certain people, you're going to have to kind of push and see if that's actually true or not. But within the team, I also love it when team members come to me and say, that person's not doing very well.
Yeah.
And I'll start a conversation with them, bilateral session or whatever, and they'll say, oh, I'm doing well. Oh, really? Because I hear this and this and this and this. And usually that cracks them.
Yeah.
And then it actually, the floodgates open and certain things come out.
Yeah.
During Corona, that happened, and that was very logical because we didn't see each other.
Yeah.
We only saw each other in video conference meetings, and especially certain parents, specialists that are also parents, were all of a sudden teachers. They were full-time parents. They had a full-time job. They had to run the entire household by themselves, for instance.
Yeah, too much.
That was just too much. But they thought they felt the responsibility that they needed to keep up the same quality and quantity of work. I said, that's not possible. You can't do 3 jobs and think you're going to, excel at all 3 of them.
Right.
Family comes first. We're going to see where we can do something with the work. So certain work was divided under other colleagues, whatnot, and these people, these individuals, were able to just continue. But that's something you're going to have to, again, find the balance in. And this was Corona. This was very eccentric in a way. But in normal day life, that's no different.
Yeah.
So if there are private issues, I don't need to know the details because I'm just the manager, but I do want to know that something's going on. So we do the certain check-ins, well, my smiley is yellow today. Why is that? Well, they'll give the details that they want to give, but this person is not excelling right now. So we're going to have to take that in consideration when we're, let's say, determining what we're going to do this sprint and how many story points or t-shirt sizes or whatever they're going to do in this sprint. If they're not, not at their optimum, then we're just going to have to calculate that in and make sure that they don't overdo it.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, even the example when people are all of a sudden teachers, I mean, their parents first always, right? It's still people first. Your work kind of comes second always, but people don't realize it. And there's a lot of stuff that can adapt around that, right? If it's too much on your plate right now,
correct.
Usually work is the easiest to adapt.
Correct. But especially these types of specialists always feel that responsibility to have to perform.
Yeah.
And I feel that for me as a manager, as a facilitator, it's for me to also make them understand you're human. You have limitations.
Yeah.
And if this, if a certain private situation is going on or whatever, you can't expect yourself to excel at that moment. You're going to have to tone it down for a while.
Yeah.
And that's not a problem. It doesn't mean you're not doing your work. Like I said, like you said, people first. And without people, there is no work to be done anyway. Yep. So if you make sure that the people are at the right energy levels, you get the right incentives, you see him bursting, you see him flaming, you see him go, trust me, the work's going to come. The results are going to come.
Exactly. It'll come at the end. That's the
absolutely.
That's
absolutely.
the fundament.
Absolutely.
That we need. Yeah.
And stop controlling. And that's also something that many managers have had to learn during Corona, because they didn't see their people anymore.
Yeah.
They didn't walk onto a work floor and saw 2 tables of their specialists and couldn't control them. And I basically said, you couldn't control me in the office. You're not going to be able to control them at home.
Yeah, what changed?
There is no question of controlling. There is a question of facilitating and looking at output, not looking at input.
Exactly. It's trust, right? And
exactly.
Do people get trust by default with you, or does it take time, or what's your take on that?
That depends on the individual, but per definition, they get the trust from the start.
Yeah.
I forgot his name, but there's a certain teacher in a conservatory. I think it's Chicago, and he also did this psychological research thing where he said everybody that came into his class got an A.
Okay.
And your job is to keep the A.
Exactly.
And that in the whole book, it basically shows that people will run harder to keep an A than to actually one time just get an A.
Exactly.
And it's not about tricking somebody. It's about facilitating, okay, let's take the pressure off. You already have the A. Now it's just a question of maintaining it. And that apparently is easier to do with less effort from yourself. It's easier to do than actually having to go for that A every time having to climb that mountain.
Yeah.
Instead of you're already on top of the mountain. The only thing you need to do is stay there. So yes, I give them the trust, and obviously it's up to them to maintain that trust. And 9 out of 10 times that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, it's fully in line with starting out already trusted, right? So empowering.
Of course.
That you don't need to prove yourself. You already are there. You just need to maintain it. right? It's psychologically, as you said,
Mm-hmm.
it's the best state to be in,
Mm-hmm.
the best state to start in. Yeah.
Yeah, and therefore I don't position myself. Obviously, hierarchically, I am, but I don't position myself as the manager. I kind of position myself as the facilitator.
Yeah.
Therefore, I hope to have open conversations with my specialists on multiple fronts and topics. But I don't want to be that person that they have to look up to, because that's total BS.
That's not you either. Yeah.
No, that's total BS.
Yeah.
It doesn't do anything. There's no added bonus to it. And if there's no added bonus, then just don't do it.
Exactly. Yeah. Nick,
Simple as that.
I really enjoyed this conversation. I really appreciate you coming on. We talked about a lot of stuff, man, but we fully align on a lot of things as well. I loved your perspective. I love your stories. Is there anything you still want to share with the audience? Something that missed? Kind of put you on the spot there.
Yeah, you did. You are. But no, the only thing I would say is give that trust and have open conversations with people.
Yeah.
No matter where in the organization they are. Everybody in general wants to do the best that they can do and do the best for the organization that they can do. So just facilitate that and stay in an active form of communication. That's it.
That's it. Things will fall into place from
exactly.
there. Yeah, I love that.
It's no rocket science.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much once more for coming on.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I'm going to round it off here. Nick van Meeteren, everyone. I'm going to put all his socials in the description below. Check him out. And thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next one.